I'm here with Will Putney to talk about End and their upcoming new record, The Sin of Human Frailty, out October 27 on Closed Casket Activities. You're an absolute legend in my eyes, at the very least. So thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Oh, thank you. Much appreciated. Happy to be here.
So let me start off by asking you this: The Sin of Human Frailty, is there a philosophical question statement behind the title of this record?
I feel like it summed up the lyrical content of the record pretty well. We pulled it from one of the songs, Brendan's the main lyricist of the band, so I can't go super deep into it. But when we were looking for a theme that kind of checks all the boxes for all the songs, that seemed to be one of these overarching moments. So I think it was, I think it wound up standing out pretty obvious to all of us.
So when you guys sat down and start thinking about, okay, what we want out of this second record, how did that brainstorming go for you guys?
There was a lot of discussion. I think me and Greg, who are like the two primary songwriters, we spent a lot of time sort of conceptualizing what we wanted to do for this record. And a lot of the song ideas started before there was music. It was more thematic this time. Like, okay, I want a song that accomplishes this and does this and that. So when we sat down to write, we kind of already had some blueprints of, we didn't have music, but we knew what we wanted to do in that aspect. And it made the process like very focused. It was good.
Do you guys look at every record as a chance not only to evolve your sound, but to evolve your processes in which you create music as well?
It's not a rule, I guess, but I know there was a lot of talk on this one, pushing the envelope a little more chaotic and more extreme. I think we're just like maybe a little unsatisfied with how the staleness of aggressive music lately, and it was like, it's kind of like you have to really like do a deep dive to find bands that I feel like stand out, nowadays. And I was like, this record, I just don't want to fall into that trap and sound like every other band and not go all the way. So we did set out to kind of go more unpredictable and chaotic and kind of make a record that was more surprising in that aspect. Obviously it still sounds like M, but there's a lot of new tricks on this one, things we haven't done before. And I think it makes the album a cooler listen.
I don't think you have to worry about sounding like anybody else or anybody else sounding like you. I mean, you guys are like a buffet of sound, and then when somebody asks you what do you want out of that buffet, the answer is yes, and you can just you just take it all. You just like head dive into that freaking buffet. You mentioned chaotic. When I was listening to the album, a couple of words popped into my mind. One was unhinged, the other one was chaotic. I do find that there is some control to that chaos, or at least there's some method to the madness. Now, are those two words that you're comfortably that you would comfortably use to describe the sound, or do you have a better way of expressing what this album sounds like to somebody who hasn't heard it yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just being more off the rails and in nature was definitely the goal. We didn't want to be as predictable this time. We wanted the music to be. I mean, to at least to us when we were writing the music or we were jamming influences or looking at refs, like all the stuff that kind of got us excited was like sort of the unpredictable nature of that side of extreme music, where we're like, yeah, this is what this was just what we were into at the time. And like maybe next record it's a different thing, but it was like we definitely had it in mind, like, okay, we want a record that feels like it's kind of coming apart, and then we would work these moments into a lot of it.
Do you guys worry about maybe not having a defined DNA as far as your sound is, considering that envelope that you keep pushing forward and that bar that you keep moving as far as that chaos, aggression, and intensity?
No, I think we still sound like End. I think if you listen to from our first song to where we are now, it's the same band. It's about working in the context of what your band is. And it's not, we didn't jump the fence and change genres or anything like that. We started as a chaotic, aggressive, hardcore grind crossover thing, whatever this is, and it's just morphed itself over time. I think it's important to evolve and but still just be who you are.
this album to be felt a little bit more, I hate using this word because a lot of people do it and it's becoming a little bit of a cliche, but it felt a little bit more organic, a little bit more raw, a little bit more natural, not that the previous album was contrived, but this one felt a little bit more, let's just kind of play, and where we go is where we're going to go. Is that a little bit of the approach?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was like, obviously there's a lot of, it's not as jammy as I wish it could be, because there's a lot of calculated technicality to the nature of this music, but it was very much like, this is the chorus, let's just run with it. So I think the stuff that came out on this record is very natural in its intent, because it's just us doing what we want to do.
How much of the length of the record goes into the thought process, putting the album together and ensuring that the album is going to have the right playability, and it's also going to have the right amount of time for the listener to really be able to digest this meaty offering that you guys have?
Yeah, I mean, we wrote a lot of songs. We have a lot more songs that were done, but I feel like whatever this 10 is that we landed on, it felt like the right amount for a record. I actually don't even know how long the record is. So I guess I didn't really play into it very much. I forgot where we landed with it. It just feels done.
It's funny you say that because the opening song is under the 2 minute mark. I think it's like a minute and 22 seconds. And when I was listening to it, it felt like it was 6 minutes long. Not that that was a bad thing. It's just that you guys are able to pack so much into such a short period of time that you actually end up feeling like you're getting a lot more than what it's there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to me, the songs just nothing feels like it overstays its welcome or that it's too short. It's just like, okay, here's the theme of the song. Let's get that done, whatever that is. That's what it is. And I think when you accomplish that, then you don't have to worry about length. I mean, we have some of the shortest songs we've ever done, but probably also some of the longest ones on this record too. So it's like, it balances itself out. When you're done with it, it just feels complete.
You mentioned about not creating something that you hadn't done before, knowing where your boundaries are. Now, when you're being this creative and you're pushing the envelope, this record has some industrial elements in it which I hadn't seen from the previous record. Uh, are you always worried, or at least in the back of your mind, you have that idea of this is who we are, this is the boundary, so we can go laterally, but once we reach that boundary, I don't really want to go above it.
No, I think I mean, there's just a certain aesthetic to the band. There's just like it's more of a mood or a feeling of like when you listen to an end song, what you're left with, how that makes you feel. And as long as that's accomplished, everything is pretty like open season as far as like what we're going to do within a song. I don't think, it's pretty rare. We're pretty dialed into what we're supposed to sound like, what we think is going to work for our band. So whatever we're bringing into a record, or if it's new sounds or new instruments or whatever, it's done through our lens. It's not done to try to sound like something that isn't us. It's more to just enhance what's already there and create something that adds an element to our music. So none of it is born out of a desire to be something we aren't. And I think as long as we stay in that headspace, we're able to make music go in any direction I think we choose, and still kind of live on the umbrella of the band and work.
When you guys are picking singles, are you picking a single because you really like the individuality of that song, or you also have in mind that that single, for those discovering the band through it kind of becomes a little bit of the calling card of perhaps of what the album is going to be? What's the decision making process?
I think, I mean, a lot goes into it, obviously. Obviously, singles are a representation of the band, and most people, aside from people who are already familiar with your band, are going to kind of make their decision of whether they like it or not just based off of hearing a song. I mean, I'm guilty of doing that. I'm sure a lot of people are. So we just try to balance it so it shows a couple of different things that we do. And, a big part of it too is like the visual components and what's going to make a cool music video. We kind of care about the aesthetic and the presentation of like our songs with our videos too. So it's like we also have to have a good concept for that. And sometimes songs maybe have single potential, but there's not really a great video idea for it, so it takes a backseat. I think it's just like the sum of all the parts, and it's all guess at the end of the day, because you'll put a record out, And then some kid at a show will tell you that this is their favorite song, and it's like, man, that would have been the last song I picked as a single, but it's this kid's favorite song, so it's like it you never get it right all the time for everyone. No one does, and I've learned to just like, okay, like everyone has pretty good taste, everyone has a pretty good idea of what they think will work for the band, and as long as there's not like, we weren't really splitting hairs, disagreeing on what we were going to roll out for this record. So I feel like it's a good indicator of like, yeah, okay, I think we're all on a page. We know what we think is going to work. So here it is.
Who has the hardest job and end? The guitarists, the bassist, the drummer, the singer, or the producer and engineer, which in this case it crosses over with guitarist.
That's good. Who has the hardest job? Physically, the drums are insane. I think drumming for this band is quite a challenge. I would every time I watch Matt play drums during our set, I just think internally like, I am so glad I play guitars. Yeah, the wear and tear of that is pretty rough. Mentally, I guess I have the hardest job because there's a lot of moving parts when it comes time to make end music, and being a guy who's in the band, but also being the guy who has to record all the stuff. I think that's probably the more taxing role mentally, but I'd still take that over playing drums for this band because that sucks.
Where do you feel more comfortable? Do you feel more comfortable with the guitar, or do you feel more comfortable behind the control panel?
I guess I'm comfortable either way. I'm not. I think I'm decent at both. There's room to grow on both sides of it, but I don't. It's rare that I pick up a guitar or try to do a mix and feel like I can't get to the finish line with whatever my idea is. I wish I was better at both. That would be cool. But I see them as just extensions of each other, so it doesn't really feel like I'm working in two different spaces all the time.
I think you're underselling yourself. I can once again, I can only speak for me. When I see your name as the producer on a record, I immediately check out that record. I don't care what the name of the band is. It could be Scratch Your Balls for all that I care. I'm still checking that out. So there's a lot of weight that comes with your name because there's also an expectation of quality. So
Oh, I
I think you're
appreciate that.
underselling yourself.
I mean, that's very flattering. I owe a lot of that to the bands I work with being awesome also, because they help make me look good from time to time. And I think it's important as a producer to make sure you line yourself with people who are going to help you make good records. And I've been lucky over the past however many years to just be able to be in rooms with people who I respect as artists and know like, okay, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad we're working together because we're making each other better.
And considering that, let me ask you this: you're a busy guy. The perception that I have is that you're a really busy guy, considering everything that you're involved with. What kind of itch does In scratch that you had to get this band going, that you had to be a part of it?
I mean, this was just music. This was just the genre of extreme music that I kind of came up in as an extension of the hardcore scene when I was a kid, and I had always gravitated towards this side of the genre. And I just never had a chance to do it. I was just never in a band. It's not the most popular little niche subgenre of heavy music, especially nowadays. And um, I just didn't know people who play this kind of music when I was a kid. I was just in like kind of regular old straightforward hardcore bands, and I was in a metal band which turned into Fit for an Autopsy, and and they're a metal band, and I would try to write stuff like what N does and try to throw it into that band, and I would struggle because I do want to play this kind of music but didn't always like work in the context. It made the songs feel more confused and stuff, so I was like, I just gotta get an outlet for this stuff. And that's like kind of why we started End, was like I just want a medium to be able to get this kind of music out, and it's helped focus and to do this, and it's made Fit better too because it's focused the writing there, where I'm like, okay, I'm not distracted by this stuff. I could just do what works for this band, and live in the genre that I feel like it's more suited for.
Of all the bands that you've worked with, of all the artists that you've worked with, is there somebody out there that you still have it on your bucket list? That's someone that you would love to cooperate with?
Oh, tons of people. I mean, there's Couldn't tell you. It's endless list of bands and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'd really love to get in a room with a band like Deftones or Mastodon, or I'm a big Queens of the Stone Age fan. That would be pretty awesome. There's tons of stuff. That list could just go on forever.
Would you be open to the idea of a band that's not within rock or metal and completely out of left field?
Yeah, sure. I mean, lately I've been kind of searching to try to work with some more sort of like darker indie bands. There's a good catalog of that stuff coming out where I'm like pretty inspired by, and the nature of those productions is really fun, because the cool thing about indie music, I feel like it's a little less constrained by norms when it comes to production. The biggest to the smallest indie bands, you just have like wildly different, unique productions. There seems to be more room sometimes to try new sounds and get away with different things. My heavy metal and hardcore and stuff. There's you can, obviously it's fun and it's creative, but stuff sort of sounds a certain way. And indie rock, I feel like it kind of has a little more range with what you're able to do sonically sometimes. And it would be interesting to try some stuff like that.
When I was listening to the album and I was listening to the guitar sound, I was thinking about you in terms of how did you brought it all together? Because the guitars on this record are a huge centerpiece of the overall sound experience of the album. And they have so many different textures to them and layers to them and directions to them. There's so many moving pieces, even in a song that might sound so simple just because of the aggression and brutality that it puts forward. There's still a lot under the hood. Being part of the process of creating the music, does it help you then the process of bringing it all together?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's like definitely the benefit of being the producer and a guy who's playing the guitar or writing the songs, is that like they work in my mind in tandem. So as I'm putting stuff together, it's just secondhand to think about how that's supposed to also sound, not just what the song actually is. And same with Greg, who also writes an end and is a record producer. We both have that brain, and we both we care about it. We want it to be interesting. I think if you hear the record, you'll see very non-typical guitar tones, for what we do. And I think a lot of it is like, yeah, it's got to have character and identity that is like our thing, and even from the onset of the band, we're like, we want to just sound like End. We don't want to sound like other bands. We have to figure out a way to do that, which is hard,
Last question for you. You guys have a big North American tour happening very soon. You're going to be coming to Toronto. There's going to be a show in Toronto at Lee's Palace. Are you excited about the tour? What's your prospects for this upcoming tour?
Yeah, it should be awesome. We're playing tons of new stuff off the record that we've had these songs for a while now. We've never been able to play them, so that's going to be really cool. Once we figure out how to do them live. And yeah, I mean, the tour is great. I love all the bands on the tour. Buddies with a bunch of them already. So I know we're walking into something that's going to be very fun. And Wake dudes are awesome. Full Hell dudes are awesome. It's definitely going to be a blast.
Are you expecting some karate in the pit, or you're not a big fan?
I'm a big fan, but I don't know if we're getting it on this. There's weird tours like our kids tour, so we will see. We'll see who shows up, I guess. As long as people are engaged, either way, it's all good. But yeah, I mean, I like crazy shows, so I'm hoping we get them.
I can tell you, listening to your stuff and then listening to you guys live, it would be impossible not to move around unless you don't have a pulse.
Yeah, well,
the only way you don't move around, because your stuff is electrifying. I mean, wow, it's like constant jolts of energy and aggression and intensity to the brain.
Yeah, I think delivering this stuff live is going to be really fun, because we were very conscious about when we were putting this stuff together to make sure it had that kind of energy that was going to work in a live setting too. So I think we're very much looking forward to executing this tour.
Well, I'll be seeing you in November in Toronto at Lee's Palace. Looking forward to the show. All the best to you guys with this release. You guys never disappoint. Like when you thought the debut album was absolutely insane, you guys moved that bar a little bit higher and bring the insanity into a whole new level with a sophomore. So congratulations.
Awesome, man. Thank you. I appreciate the chat and hope to see you soon.
Take care, man. All the best.
All right. Later, dude.